The air was thick with tension as the jungle canopy above vibrated with the sound of distant explosions. Rayna Stark crouched low behind a jagged outcrop of rock, her breath steady but her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear the muffled, rhythmic hum of the alien strike teams as they descended through the dense foliage. Their weapons were primed, their boots thudding against the wet earth. The enemy was coming. And this time, they weren't here to capture, they were here to kill. Rayna's fingers tightened around the grip of her rifle. She could almost taste the cold steel, the weight of the weapon a constant reminder of what was at stake. The alien forces, the Vordians, had already decimated most of the resistance groups. Humanity's military might had been overwhelmed, and Earth was losing its battle for survival. Her mission was simple: hold the line, buy time, and strike fear into the invaders. But as she heard the soft crack of a twig underfoot, Rayna knew it wasn't going to be easy. Her eyes narrowed, focusing on the perimeter she'd been assigned to protect. The jungle was alive with the sounds of nature, but beneath it all, there was an unmistakable rhythm. The Vordian assault team was moving swiftly, methodically. They were trained for this, an elite force, bred for stealth and brutality. But Rayna had a different set of skills. Skills honed in the most unforgiving environments. She checked her surroundings, scanning for any sign of movement. Her team was scattered across the area, hidden in strategic positions, waiting for the right moment. The plan was simple: lure them in, wait for the first strike, and then hit them hard with everything they had. Rayna wasn't afraid of the Vordians. They had underestimated humanity before. But Rayna had learned the hard way that underestimating the enemy could be the last mistake you ever made. And that's why she was here. A sudden flash of movement caught her eye, and she tensed. A Vordian soldier, cloaked in camouflaged armor, crept through the underbrush. He was close, too close. Rayna's finger hovered over the trigger, but she held her fire. The mission was about more than just shooting the first enemy she saw. She had to draw them in. She glanced to her left. Her second-in-command, Jensen, was in position, ready to flank the Vordians if necessary. He was a seasoned soldier, a man who had survived countless skirmishes, but even he knew how unpredictable these alien forces could be. Then, without warning, the first shot rang out. A thunderous crack echoed across the jungle, and Rayna spun to see one of her team members, Cooper, go down, his body jerking as a laser blast hit him square in the chest. Blood splattered across the foliage, and the shockwave of the blast sent debris flying into the air. Asterisk, damn it, asterisk! Rayna hissed, instinctively rising to her feet. Cooper's sacrifice wasn't in vain. The strike had drawn the Vordians closer, just as she'd planned. Asterisk, engage, asterisk! Rayna shouted into her comms. The jungle erupted into chaos. Gunfire and alien screeches filled the air as the Vordians retaliated. But Rayna didn't hesitate. She dove into the fray, her rifle blazing as she took out the nearest target. Her breath quickened, and the familiar rush of battle coursed through her veins. This was what she had been trained for. This was what Earth needed her to do. Her team was moving with precision, a well-oiled machine. They were outnumbered, but they had the advantage of terrain. The dense foliage and towering trees provided the perfect cover, and the Vordians were learning that the hard way. Rayna's heart hammered in her chest as she took out another alien soldier with a well-placed shot. Her breath came in quick bursts, her movements fluid and practiced. The battle was intense, but she couldn't afford to lose focus. She had to keep the momentum going. Asterisk, Rayna, we've got incoming, asterisk! Jensen's voice crackled in her earpiece. She barely heard him over the sound of gunfire, but she knew what he meant. The Vordians weren't just sending in soldiers. They were sending in hunters, the apex of their military force, bred for one purpose: to track and eliminate high-value targets like Rayna herself. The ground trembled as a massive shape moved through the trees, the unmistakable sound of a Vordian war beast approaching. It was larger than anything she'd seen before, 8 feet tall, its armored body nearly impervious to their weapons. The creature's elongated, alien eyes locked onto her, its jaws snapping as it charged. Rayna's pulse quickened. The Vordians had underestimated her before, but they weren't going to make that mistake again. Asterisk fall back, asterisk, she ordered, her voice calm despite the rising panic in her chest. The team was already retreating, drawing the war beast further into the trap. The Vordians were good, but Rayna had them figured out. They relied too much on their brute strength. It was time to use their arrogance against them. Asterisk now, asterisk, she shouted again, and her squad split, positioning themselves in a half-circle around the incoming beast. The war beast roared, its blood-curdling screech echoing through the jungle. It charged forward, oblivious to the trap, its massive claws ripping through the underbrush. Rayna's team opened fire, pouring every round they had into the creature's hide. The beast staggered but didn't fall. This wasn't going to be easy. But Rayna wasn't afraid. She had a secret weapon. She crouched low, setting her rifle aside, and pulled a small, specialized device from her belt. The device hummed to life, sending a silent pulse into the air. The jungle went quiet for a moment as the Vordian war beast paused, its senses confused. Rayna smiled grimly. It was time. In one smooth motion, she activated the device, and a series of sharp, piercing sounds filled the air, her team's signal. The beast's movements became erratic, its mind overwhelmed by the frequency. The creature charged again, but this time, it was uncoordinated, its attacks slower, more desperate. Rayna took advantage of the opening. She leaped from her position, sprinting forward and firing her sidearm with deadly accuracy. Her shot struck the beast in the vulnerable area beneath its armored neck. The creature screeched in agony before collapsing dead. The jungle fell silent, the battle over. For now. Rayna stood over the beast's fallen body, breathing heavily but focused. Asterisk keep moving, asterisk, she said quietly. Asterisk the war's not over yet, asterisk. As her team moved on, Rayna's mind raced. The jungle was only the beginning. The Vordians would come again, and next time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. But just as they turned to leave, a distant rumble shook the earth. The sky above darkened as massive Vordian ships descended from the clouds, blocking out the sun. Rayna's pulse quickened. The true invasion was about to begin. The real war was only just starting. Asterisk it's not over, asterisk, she muttered. Asterisk this is just the beginning, asterisk. The echo of gunfire still resonated in the jungle air as Rayna and her squad moved swiftly through the undergrowth. They'd taken down the Vordian war beast, but they were far from safe. The enemy was relentless, and the jungle, despite its thick canopy and dense foliage, felt smaller with every step they took. Rayna's heart pounded, but her mind was sharp. Asterisk they know we're here now. This is no longer a search and destroy mission. This is war. Asterisk the first skirmish had only been a warm-up. The real threat was still out there, watching, waiting. Asterisk Jensen, check the rear, asterisk. Rayna's voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of urgency. She glanced over her shoulder to see Jensen, her most trusted soldier, keeping pace with her. He was a solid fighter, no nonsense, but even he could feel the gravity of the situation. Asterisk I'm on it, asterisk, Jensen replied, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. He was a veteran, battle-tested, but the Vordians were different. They were bred for war, to infiltrate, hunt, and kill with precision. Rayna's team moved like shadows, darting between trees and low shrubs, trying to stay as silent as possible. They were behind enemy lines now, and they couldn't afford to make another mistake. The enemy had advanced beyond mere soldiers. They had specialized strike teams, trained assassins that would stop at nothing to erase any human resistance. And she had no doubt that the Vordians were watching their every move. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and burnt ozone from the earlier skirmish. The jungle was eerily quiet now. Too quiet. Then, the comms crackled to life. Asterisk Rayna, we've got something, asterisk. It was Mendez, one of the younger soldiers, his voice tight with uncertainty. Asterisk talk to me, asterisk, she said, slowing her pace, eyes scanning the tree line. Asterisk I've got movement. 2 clicks to the east. They're moving fast. I think it's another strike team, asterisk. Mendez reported. Rayna cursed under her breath. Another strike team. They hadn't expected this level of coordination. The Vordians were adapting. Fast. Asterisk, keep your head down, Mendez. We'll rendezvous in 5 asterisk. Rayna ordered, adjusting her position. She looked at Jensen, who nodded in understanding. Asterisk, we need to move, now, asterisk. Rayna motioned, and the squad began moving in the direction Mendez had indicated. The jungle felt heavier now, like the air itself was suffocating under the weight of their mission. Every leaf, every crackling twig was a potential threat, every shadow a hiding place for enemies they couldn't see. The jungle was both their cover and their enemy. And Rayna couldn't shake the feeling that the Vordians were playing them, leading them into a trap. Asterisk, what do we do if they're ready for us? Asterisk, Jensen asked, his eyes narrowing as he swept his rifle across the foliage. Asterisk, we kill them first. Asterisk. Rayna's voice was cold, calculated. There was no room for hesitation. If they were going to die today, they were going to take as many of the Vordians as they could with them. They reached Mendez's position in under 5 minutes. He was crouched behind a large boulder, his rifle aimed toward the distant clearing. His eyes met Rayna's as she approached. Asterisk, they're getting closer, asterisk, Mendez said, a thin sheen of sweat on his brow. Asterisk, they're stealthy. These aren't regular troops. They've got tech, something that's masking their heat signature. Asterisk. Rayna nodded grimly. Advanced cloaking technology. She had seen it before in other factions, but never like this. The Vordians were always one step ahead. Asterisk, Jensen, Mendez, you're with me. We'll set up here. The rest of you, form the perimeter. We need them in our sights before they know we're here, asterisk. She ordered. Her squad quickly fell into position. Rayna's pulse quickened, not from fear but from the thrill of the hunt. She had to admit, she enjoyed this part. The silence before the storm. The moments when every movement, every breath, could mean life or death. She checked her rifle's scope, zeroing in on the area ahead. A few flickers of movement, just a flash. But it was enough. Rayna's breath hitched as she recognized the pattern. Vordian elite soldiers, cloaked and moving in pairs. Their armor was lighter than the war beast, designed for speed and agility. Silent killers. Asterisk, they're closing in on our position, asterisk, Jensen said, his voice tight. Rayna's mind raced. She couldn't wait for them to reach her position. They needed to hit them first, fast and hard. Asterisk, on my mark, asterisk, she whispered, her fingers tightening on the trigger. Asterisk 3, 2, 1, asterisk. She squeezed the trigger. The crack of her rifle was deafening, but she didn't flinch. The first Vordian dropped, a precise shot to the chest, armor crumpling under the force of the impact. Jensen followed, his own rifle barking to life, taking down the second target with an expert shot to the head. The Vordians didn't falter, though. They'd been expecting an ambush. The remaining 2 soldiers moved with swift precision, throwing smoke grenades to mask their position. The jungle filled with thick, greenish fog, making visibility near impossible. Asterisk, tactical retreat to the clearing, asterisk, Rayna barked. The squad moved quickly, but the Vordians were already closing in. It was like a cat-and-mouse game, except Rayna and her squad were the prey and the predators. Asterisk, they're fast. Too fast, asterisk, Mendez muttered, fear creeping into his voice. Asterisk, no. We're faster, asterisk, Rayna snapped, pushing forward. The clearing was just ahead. They had to reach it. They had to take the high ground. Another shot rang out, and Rayna's world exploded into chaos. The sound of an energy blast, the unmistakable whine of a Vordian sniper rifle, whizzed past her ear, singeing a lock of hair. She dove behind a tree, narrowly avoiding the blast. The Vordians were on them now, and they weren't holding back. Asterisk, take cover! Keep moving, asterisk! Rayna shouted. The battle intensified. Explosions rocked the ground around them, and the jungle was filled with the thundering sound of gunfire. Rayna's team was good, asterisk damn good asterisk, but the Vordians were closing in. Asterisk, we need that high ground, asterisk. Rayna gritted through clenched teeth. She made her way toward the top of the ridge, her rifle trained on the remaining Vordian strike teams. Her squad followed, covering each other, but they were running out of time. And then it hit her. The Vordians weren't just pushing them back. They were cornering them. Rayna's breath caught as the realization dawned. It's a trap. Asterisk, Mendez! Fall back to the extraction point! Now, asterisk! Rayna shouted, her voice urgent. But it was too late. The Vordians had already set up a blockade. Rayna's team was surrounded. The air felt thick with the weight of an approaching storm, as if the jungle itself had turned on them. Rayna crouched low behind a fallen log, her heart pounding in her chest. The Vordian strike teams had successfully boxed them in. Escape was no longer an option. Every move they made was being watched. They know we're here, she thought. They've been waiting for us. Her squad was huddled together, silently assessing the situation. The jungle, usually a silent witness to their battles, now felt suffocating. They had no safe havens, no cover left. The Vordians had already set up snipers, and even the trees above were not safe. Every movement could be their last. Asterisk, Rayna, asterisk. Jensen's voice came through the comms, a note of frustration and tension in his tone. Asterisk, we're not getting out of this unless we make a stand. Asterisk. Rayna's jaw clenched. He was right. They were down to their last option. But even that felt too risky. If they couldn't hold their ground, humanity's chances would slip away with the setting sun. Asterisk, we make our stand here, asterisk. Rayna said firmly. Asterisk, and we fight like hell, asterisk. Asterisk, roger that, asterisk. Jensen replied, his voice steel strong. He had no doubt, no fear in his tone, and that steadied Rayna's nerves. Her fingers grazed the cold metal of her rifle. She had learned a long time ago not to expect mercy from the enemy, especially when that enemy was the Vordians. They were merciless. But so was she. Humanity had never been known for its strength in numbers, but they had always been resilient, capable of fighting dirty and striking when least expected. Today, that would be their advantage. Asterisk, set up your positions, asterisk. She ordered quietly, watching as the squad moved quickly into place. Each member of her team was a specialist, equipped for different combat scenarios, but their real strength was their ability to work together seamlessly. Jensen and Mendez took the high ground, while Cooper and Kate set up a defensive line, their rifles aimed toward the jungle edge where the Vordian forces were closing in. Rayna kept her eyes trained on the clearing ahead, her finger lightly resting on the trigger. She knew the Vordians were out there, waiting, planning. She didn't care how many of them there were. She had a job to do, and that job was survival. Her squad's survival. The silence was broken by the distant crack of a branch snapping. The jungle felt alive with anticipation as the first Vordian soldier appeared in the clearing, his sleek, reflective armor blending with the shadows. A single shot rang out, cutting through the silence like a knife. The Vordian crumpled to the ground, his body twitching in the final moments of life. Asterisk, nice shot, Kate, asterisk, Rayna said, her voice calm despite the sudden chaos. But the Vordians weren't shaken. They had anticipated an ambush. More soldiers flooded into the clearing, and the sound of heavy gunfire shattered the stillness. Rayna's squad opened fire, each shot strategically placed, aiming for weak points in the Vordian armor. The battle unfolded with brutal efficiency. The Vordians were fast, their movements precise, and their armor tough. But Rayna's squad was relentless. Every time a Vordian fell, another took its place. The jungle was becoming a war zone, explosions rippling through the air, smoke rising from the detonations. But then, a new sound cut through the chaos. A low, mechanical hum, barely audible at first, but unmistakable. Asterisk, we've got company, asterisk, Jensen called out. His voice was sharp, urgent. Asterisk, something big's coming, asterisk. Rayna's eyes narrowed. Reinforcements. She had expected this. The Vordians weren't going to let them take the high ground without a fight. They never did. A monstrous Vordian war machine emerged from the jungle, its massive frame moving with terrifying speed. It was armored from head to toe, its legs heavily reinforced with plating, and its weapons arrayed like an arsenal of death. This was no ordinary soldier. It was a killing machine, designed for one purpose: destruction. Fall back, Rayna shouted. It was a desperate move, but it was their only choice. They couldn't face this new threat head-on, not with what they had left. They needed to buy time, regroup, and find a way to neutralize it. The squad split, retreating to higher ground as the Vordian war machine advanced. Its weapons powered up with a crackling hum. The air was charged with the sound of energy weapons, their bolts lancing out, carving through trees and rocks in their path. Jensen, Mendez, cover the flanks, Rayna ordered, her voice steady, despite the adrenaline surging through her veins. She was thinking faster now, her mind working in overdrive. They couldn't let the war machine push them back. She needed a solution. She glanced around quickly, spotting the crumpled form of one of the Vordian soldiers on the ground. Beside it, a grenade had been dropped. It wasn't much, but it was something. Cooper, Kate, Rayna said, keeping her voice level. Get to the grenade. I need a clear shot, They nodded in unison, moving swiftly as Rayna focused on the massive war machine. Every inch of her mind was calculating, assessing weaknesses, but there was one thing she knew for sure: this machine was their final obstacle. The first shot rang out. It was a clean hit, straight into the machine's side, but the impact barely made a dent. The armor was too thick, the shield too strong. Rayna's stomach twisted. This was going to take more than just a shot. We need something bigger, she muttered to herself, eyes scanning the jungle. It was then that the realization hit her. The jungle itself was a weapon. She had to use it to her advantage. Rayna tapped into her comms, giving quick orders. Deploy the explosive charges on my mark, The rest of the team nodded, setting their charges strategically across the area. Rayna's team was the best at what they did. This was their moment. Now, Rayna shouted. Explosions tore through the air, sending shockwaves into the war machine's hull. The ground shook as debris flew, but the war machine kept coming. But it was now vulnerable. Now's our chance, Rayna barked. She didn't hesitate, locking onto the war machine's exposed flank, where the shield had been weakened. Another shot rang out. And then another. The war machine faltered, its momentum slowing as it stumbled backward. In that single moment, the tide of battle shifted. We've got it, Jensen said, his voice thick with relief. It's down, Rayna watched as the massive war machine collapsed, its systems failing as its heavy frame hit the ground with a deafening crash. The jungle seemed to sigh, a quiet reprieve from the battle's fury. But Rayna knew this was far from over. They had won a single battle, but the war was still raging. They were far from victory, and the Vordians would come again. She turned to her squad, their faces grim but determined. Stay sharp. We've got more to do, The jungle fell silent once again, but Rayna knew they had made their mark. The war was far from over, but humanity's resolve had never been stronger. This was just the beginning. Rayna stood over the smoldering remains of the Vordian war machine, her breath steady despite the chaos that had unfolded around her. The jungle was still, save for the distant hum of the other Vordian strike teams regrouping in the distance. They had made their stand, and had managed to take down one of their most formidable enemies, but the battle was far from won. Her squad was battered but alive. They had done it. They had survived the initial wave, taken down one of the Vordian war machines, and held their ground. But something gnawed at Rayna. They had only delayed the inevitable. The Vordians had been testing them, pushing them to the brink. This wasn't a victory. It was a breath before the storm. Rayna, we've got movement to the west, Jensen's voice came through her earpiece, his tone clipped with urgency. Big movement. We need to move, now, Fall back to the extraction point, Rayna ordered, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Now, Jensen, The team didn't need further orders. They had been trained for this. Each one of them moved with purpose, slipping back into the jungle's embrace like shadows. But Rayna's mind was elsewhere, focused on the distant rumblings of the Vordian advance. The war was still on, and their enemies were smarter than she had given them credit for. The Vordians were relentless. Rayna, Mendez said, his voice tight with apprehension as he fell into step beside her. Do you think we can actually pull this off? I mean, that was one of their top machines, and we took it down. They'll have reinforcements, but can we hold them off? Rayna glanced at him, her expression hardening. The younger soldiers were scared. They had every right to be. But she wouldn't let fear cloud their judgment. We can hold them off, Rayna replied, her voice low but resolute. We'll keep fighting, keep pushing back. We'll show them that humanity doesn't break easily, Mendez nodded, but his expression told a different story. The truth was, Rayna wasn't sure they could keep this up. They had taken down one war machine, but there were more, many more, on the way. Move it, Rayna barked, pushing forward. They needed to get out of the immediate danger zone and to the extraction point, where their dropship was waiting. They had to get to safety, get the intel they'd gathered back to the command center. The survival of Earth depended on it. The squad pushed through the thick undergrowth, their footfalls quick and purposeful. The jungle's oppressive silence hung over them, the threat of impending doom looming with every step they took. Rayna's mind raced. She couldn't shake the feeling that the Vordians were playing a long game. What's their end game? What do they want with Earth? The Vordians weren't just soldiers. They were strategists, planners. They had their sights set on something bigger than just conquering Earth. Rayna's thoughts were interrupted by the crackle of her comms again. Rayna, Jensen's voice came through, tight with urgency. We've got a problem. They're not just advancing. They're bringing in something bigger, Rayna stopped dead in her tracks. What do you mean, bigger, I don't know yet, Jensen said, his voice low. But it's massive. You've got to see it to believe it. It's heading straight for the extraction point, Her heart dropped. They were being herded. Everyone, double time, Rayna snapped, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Move! Move! Move, Her squad broke into a sprint. Their footsteps pounded in unison as they moved through the jungle with terrifying speed. But as they neared the extraction point, a low, resonant hum began to fill the air. It was growing louder. Rayna's blood ran cold. What is that sound, Cooper muttered, his voice strained with fear. Rayna didn't need to ask. She knew what it was. Something massive, something designed to crush them all. The Vordian war machine wasn't the only weapon in their arsenal. The ground beneath them shook. The jungle seemed to tremble with the force of something enormous making its way through the dense vegetation. And then, as if emerging from the depths of the earth itself, it appeared. A Vordian behemoth, towering over the trees, its massive legs crushing everything in its path. Its body was a fortress of armor and weaponry, bristling with plasma cannons, missile pods, and energy shields. This was the Vordian's final move, and it was a killing machine like nothing Rayna had ever seen. The squad halted, staring in awe at the behemoth. The sheer scale of it was terrifying. Its glowing eyes focused on them, and Rayna could feel the weight of its gaze like a death sentence. We can't fight that, Mendez said, his voice barely a whisper. Rayna didn't respond at first. Her mind was racing, but she knew one thing for sure. They were outmatched. Outgunned. But they weren't dead yet. We need to buy time, Rayna said, her voice cold with determination. We fight. We hold them off as long as we can. If we can't win, we slow them down, asterisk. Her team nodded, taking their positions in the jungle. The Vordian behemoth advanced relentlessly, its cannons charging. It was a towering wall of destruction, unstoppable, but Rayna had one final plan. She turned to Jensen. Asterisk, set the charges. I'll cover you, asterisk. Asterisk, you sure about this, Rayna? Asterisk. Jensen asked, his face tense. Asterisk, it's a one-way ticket, asterisk. Asterisk, just do it, asterisk. She snapped. The squad moved quickly, setting the explosive charges in place as Rayna fired her rifle, trying to draw the Vordian's attention. Her shots bounced harmlessly off its armored shell, but it was enough to buy Jensen time. The behemoth swung its massive plasma cannon in her direction, firing a stream of deadly energy that burned the air around her. She dove to the side, rolling behind a large tree just as the blast hit the ground, sending shards of rock and debris flying. Her heart raced, but she didn't stop. The charges had to be set. They had to give humanity one last chance. Asterisk, ready, asterisk. Jensen called out, his voice strained. Asterisk, set them off now, Rayna, asterisk. Rayna didn't hesitate. She slammed her palm into the detonator, and the jungle erupted into a flash of light and sound. The explosion rocked the behemoth, sending shockwaves through the ground as the charges hit their mark. The massive Vordian staggered, smoke and fire billowing from the cracks in its armor. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't nearly enough. Asterisk, fall back, asterisk, Rayna shouted. Asterisk now, asterisk. Her team retreated into the jungle, the massive Vordian slowly recovering, its weapons charging once again. They hadn't won. They hadn't even slowed it down. But Rayna knew this was just the beginning. As they ran, Rayna stole one last glance at the behemoth, her mind already racing ahead. The war was far from over, and the Vordians weren't going to stop. But humanity was still standing. And they weren't giving up. Cliffhanger ending asterisk. As the squad reached the extraction point, a sudden, high-pitched whine filled the air. Rayna looked up, eyes wide in disbelief. Above them, a fleet of Vordian ships descended from the sky, blocking out the sun. The true invasion had begun.